Hello everybody, it is Ebontis, and as you probably saw in the title, this is my review for Banishers Ghost of New Eden. Now up front, I want to say that this is a collaboration between Focus Entertainment and Don't Nod, and they're the ones I want to thank for the copy of the game and the early access to be able to make this video, also work on potentially a guide for this. So thank you guys for the copy of the game, but also know that these opinions are 100% my own, so no question of what's going on there. Alright, that beginning stuff out of the way, let's talk about Banishers. And Banishers Ghost of New Eden involves two main characters as your protagonists. And this is one of them. This is Red McWraith. Now, Red previously was a mercenary in, earlier years of his life. Mercenaries, what do? Hired to go around do different things. Sometimes he had to kill people. And he became haunted by some of the victims of his past. Well, he ran into Antea, and she is a Banisher. Now, Banishers, they are ghost hunters, and they basically have vowed to protect the living from lingering ghosts and specters and things of that nature. She's highly trained, highly skilled in this. This is her profession, and she's dealt with some stuff in the past, so she's kind of a little bit more cold and closed off, but it's what she does. And she, came upon Red and helped him out. She helped his ghosts and, his past torments move on from haunting him, so he was a bit more free. And that's the moment where he decided to change his life. He decided to no longer kill anybody living. He wanted to focus on going for dealing with the undead, dealing with the ghosts in that realm, because he's done with that past life. So that's a little bit of a history between the two characters. Now, what you'll notice, though, as I switch between the characters, Antea looks a little bit different. She's a little glowy, she's a little wispy, and that is part of how the game opens. Now, I'm going to do my best to not spoil any story arc stuff. I'm not going to show any main dialogue or anything of that nature. I'll show a couple bits of dialogue so you can get a little bit of the interactions and see what I'm talking about as part of like one side quest. I will use it as an example, and I will still give timestamps if you want to skip that entirely. But my goal with that example is to explain a good chunk of how the game's story and delivery and investigations for the hauntings work without covering anything related to the main story beats, because those are important, and those I want you to see for yourself. So that's kind of the premise. I'm going to go as spoiler free on some stuff as possible. When it comes to abilities in combat, I won't show all of them, but I do want to give you guys an example of just the gist of how things are going to work. The area that I'm in is kind of an indescript cave in the forest, and that's the reason I'm not showing anything late game or other areas or anything of that nature. Now, this game takes place in about 1695, so if you picture things like Salem witch trials, Puritans, pilgrims, it takes place in the northern wilds of the Americas, so picture the, Atlantic coast, northern areas, all the states up in that region, the wilderness, Appalachian Mountains. Take your pick, but anywhere in that nature in 1695 for a year in your head, all of those historic things going on, that's where you can be in a mental space for where this game is taking place and when. So you have this conundrum. Red and Antea, they're now lovers and partners in life, and they work together as Banishers to do what they do. The problem is in the beginning of the game, and I have to spoil this for you because of this, what the whole game is based around. They come to help a colleague in New Eden, which is where this whole game takes place, and unfortunately, things don't go well in the beginning. I'll let you see why. I'm not going to show you that piece of it. If you've watched the trailer, you may get it, but I'm not going to be the one to spoil it for you. Antea doesn't make it. She gets killed. And Red basically escapes with his life, and shortly after kind of recovering and, getting awake and kind of recovering after what happened to him, he bumps into Antea's ghost. And he realizes he's got a bit of a problem. And they actually kind of talk about it for a little bit too. Banishers have one main thing that they're supposed to do. And they have a creed to this. Life for the living, death for the dead. So what a Banisher will typically do is they need to understand the history of a ghost to figure out how they're going to treat the ghost. They typically try and find a tie to the ghost, usually a physical object, so they can eventually have a way to manifest that ghost and also interact with the ghost as well as who is being haunted. They're trying to gather all the information so they can get the whole story to understand what they're going to do, because for ghosts, Banishers are judge, jury, and executioner, but their goal is to move them on from this life. Red is in a tough spot because the woman he loves was killed. you can kind of decide if it was because of his actions, hers, the wrong place, wrong time, whatever it may be. But he's now presented with the idea that he's got his wife, partner, Ghost, right here with him. And for him to help her move on, they've got to get back to her body. And that's, part of the journey of the game. But when they get there, he has a choice. And it's one that he didn't really think about, but they discuss it early on when she jokes, hey, if something ever happened to you, I'd bring you back. Now, for Red to bring Antea back to life, he has to have enough essence of life from other people, means he has to murder other people to get the essence of life from them. And I know that sounds dark, but when I go through the example, it's going to make more sense how that is one of the options that you can do. But the only way to do that is to gather up enough essence from other individuals and use that as a ritual to bring her back. The other option you're going to have, you have the choice to bring her back and then you can share the rest of your life with her. Hopefully that's smooth. But you also have the option to help her move on as a ghost, being as she is a banisher. She's literally tormented being exactly who she is. Looking at herself as a ghost kind of messes with her because her whole purpose has been to not do that. So Red's in a very tough spot. And this is not an easy thing, knowing you actually do have the option to bring back the one you love. You have the power to do that. Plenty of stories have probably messed with this. But the idea is, how far are you willing to go? What lines are you willing to cross? Things in this game are never black and white, and basically it's a lot of gray and the lines are blurry. That's what a lot of goes on in this game. So what I want to do, that kind of sets up the premise of these two characters and why they are in the situation that they're in. I'll explain a little bit about combat and traversal, a little bit of my frustrations with the game after this, but I want to explain is one of the stories. And this is going to be the side quest. So if you want to avoid spoilers, now is the time. And I'll put timestamps on screen so you can jump ahead to avoid this one section. But I'm not covering any main story beats. This is one of many side kind of quest hauntings that you'll deal with. But I think it's just a good example as to where the decisions come into play. So a lot of what you're dealing with this game are hauntings. Again, your purpose is to resolve spirits and ghosts and their issues. And what you need to do is typically gather the information. The bigger story beats go a lot deeper. Some of these are not easy discussions to have, but they're not quite as, involving the whole town or some whole, bigger important characters involved. I'm not going to touch any of those because that's major spoilers. I don't want to do that. This is one example. That's kind of why I'm using it. So take Evelyn. She used to live in another area. She had a falling out with her sister, and we kind of figure out why in a little bit. So she has come to New Eden. She is a doctor. She's here, and that's what she's doing. Well, she was attacked in the forest, lost her medical bag. When she bumps into the Banishers, she asks them to go get it. When they go get it, they kind of realize she was being pursued by a ghost because there's remnants of kind of ghost energy on her bag. You got a little Ghostbusters energy in here, but have a little fun with that if you want. When you meet back with her in town with her bag, you realize she's still a little bit flustered.
Why, Mistress Fitcher, whatever is the matter?
I was home, working. All of a sudden, the book in my hands was torn apart. What does the devil want with me?
Not the devil, but a ghost. You must know it now.
Till lately, I would never have believed such nonsense.
I've passed through Yorkshire. Seems nice enough. Why leave?
Why does it matter?
To understand why someone is haunted, it helps to know a little about them.
Fine. I came to treat the sick and chase the devil from New Eden town. My cousin, Nicholas Doolin, may the Lord keep him, said the town needed doctoring. I took my chance. But when the devil came a-knocking, well, we were forced to leave.
For a rationalist, her faith in God and the devil is strong.
It was difficult to leave New Eden town. But I'd left one home behind. What did it matter if I must leave another?
Did you leave a lover behind? If that's not too impertinent a question.
It is too impertinent a question, thank you very much. And the answer is no. I left my patients, and I left a sister. Things between us had soured. Rather than try to fix the unfixable, I chose to start over.
Unfixable? Why?
She was to wed, and I opposed it. It was the mistake of her life. I would not lie to comfort her, and she would not forgive me for it.
That's good to know. Though I don't yet understand how it relates to your haunting. Mind if I look around? I'm aware this is your home. I've no wish to trespass.
If you must, you may. Do tread carefully,
What you do then is you ask, hey, I need to investigate you. I need to figure out more about your life. So you go into her cabin, dig into some of her history, her notes, her journals, things like that. You find a book. You realize she is a doctor. She understands medicine, its uses, and all of those things. Then you find like a key to a shed. So you go into the shed and you find a painting. And that painting was a gift for her sister and potential future husband. And the painting is the tie. So we will do a ritual. And again, as I'm saying some of this, I might cut a few clips in here and there. So hopefully you guys enjoy this piece of it so you can see a little bit of the dialogue. But the painting they use as a tie, and that is actually what they use to manifest the ghost that is haunting Evelyn. Meet Joffrey.
The ghost is connected to this picture. Time to summon him.
You may hide no more.
Why am I here? Oh, that was a clever trick. Now you see me, you lucky things. Can you hear me too?
Aye, we can hear you. We've not met. I've seen your likeness. In the picture, you seemed in better shape.
Well, now that's not very polite. Who are you, anyway?
I'm Antea Duarte. This is Red McWraith.
Geoffrey Rollins, me. Pretty as a picture. Near as pretty as you, me lady fair.
We're Banishers. Looks are not high on our list of priorities.
Banishers, are you? How very attractive. I wager you smell good. I wager you smell dangerous. I like you.
This guy is a self-indulgent, selfish, pompous playboy. Pick any set of adjectives, you listen to him talk for a little while, you'll understand it. Now, he wanted to marry Evelyn's sister. I think it's Felicity, but I could be wrong. But the idea is he also has syphilis. Now, Evelyn, being a doctor, she tries to treat him, but whether she's incapable of it or not, she also knows that Joffrey is potentially going to give syphilis to her sister when they get married and copulate and whatever else you're going to do there. She has, as a doctor, she wants to try and cure him, but he ends up dying. So the reason he is haunting her is because he blames her for her death. He's like, she could have just cured me. Maybe that's easy, maybe it's not, but in 1695, syphilis is a very serious thing. Now, when you get back from the shed, she's not at her cabin, you go traipsing through the woods, you go through a couple combat encounters along the way, and the whole area is cursed. The events of the opening of the game explain why the entire area that you explore in this whole game is cursed. So again, I'm trying to let you guys get to the opening and understand it. I don't want to like spoil the opening, but if you watch the trailer, you may have seen things. But as the whole world is cursed, spirits and things are running around, you're going to have combat encounters all over the place. You'll have boss fights and things, and we'll cover combat. But after those couple combat encounters, you will find Evelyn and Joffrey at the cabin. Joffrey's outside. He's like, hey, throws a few more enemies kind of at you. And then when you're done beating them, you go inside and you confront Evelyn. Now, what you figured out from Joffrey, after asking what medicine he was giving and what happened and how he died, you figure out that Evelyn actually overdosed Joffrey, kind of poisoned him basically by giving him too much. Again, a doctor in knowledge of medicine knows what is a proper dose, what is too much, and what are the effects of it. So now, with all the information that Evelyn did in fact poison Joffrey, but Joffrey is haunting Evelyn because he was going to be potentially giving syphilis to her sister, you are given a choice.
I know who haunts you. Your ghost is the spirit of one Joffrey Rawlings.
Oh, Lord. I thought I knew the voice. I thought I glimpsed his face.
He was your patient. Syphilis, I believe.
Yes? But this was years ago.
Fearing he would give your sister the pox, did you poison him with quicksilver?
Is he here in search of revenge? Yes. I stole a few months of Joffrey Rowling's life to save decades of my sister's.
You acted from love for your sister. But the choice was hers, not yours.
What would you have done? Knowing you could save a loved one's life, what would you have done?
She took her life and feels no guilt.
Let's get to the bottom of this. You've both made your choices. Now it's my turn.
And the screen kind of looks like this, so hopefully I'll put it on the screen. Should have it recorded. You can either blame Evelyn. She was a doctor. She took the Hippocratic Oath. I don't know if she did or not, but nowadays you could picture it that way at least. And she, trying to treat her patient, ends up intentionally giving him too much medicine and killing him, but she did that to protect her sister, who unknowingly likely could have contracted syphilis and possibly died way earlier in life than she ever needed to. Is she the one to blame? If you choose to blame her, what's going to happen is you are going to perform that blame ritual and you are going to murder Evelyn. You are going to kill her, but you are going to take that essence of life that you are eventually going to accumulate and you are going to use that to bring Antea back. That is, and you will have to do this many times.
Evelyn Fitcher, who swore to do no harm. Joffrey Rawlings placed his trust in you. You poisoned him.
Rawlings was sick, body and soul, and would have passed his illness on. What was I to do?
You went against your sister's wishes, against your own principles.
'Twas a life for a life, a trade, the balance equal. A life for a life.
I understand. I'm about to make the same trade.
To both of us, death was a remedy. But who shall judge you, Banisher, when judgment time has come?
Now, you have two other choices. You're dealing with the ghosts. For Joffrey, he is a bit of a pompous prick. He's selfish. He really, he wanted to marry Evelyn's sister, but he was not going to tell her he had syphilis. He could have given it to her. Kind of didn't really care. He's still just a selfish dude who wants what he wants. So you may think, hey, you're a bit of a turd. I'm going to go ahead and banish you. Your afterlife is going to be spent in tortured purgatory in the void. Have fun with that. It's not going to be great. I don't think you deserve anything positive from this.
Joffrey Rawlings, selfish, reckless, and impenitent. You did not listen to Mistress Fitcher. You did not listen to your doctor.
She poisoned me.
She did. Perhaps you should consider why. Alive, your self-seeking put your bride at risk. Dead, you're doing the same to her sister.
She poisoned me. Does that not count?
It counts, until the moment it doesn't. That moment, Joffrey Rawlings, is now. Hear me, and be gone.
Life to the living, death to the dead.
So, ghosts are real?
We did tell her.
Well, thank you for your help. I should get back to work.
Indeed. Life to the living. Never mind, it's a Banisher thing.
Third option, also involving Joffrey, allows you to have him ascend. Basically more of a peaceful transition into an afterlife of peace and moving on from this plane of existence, no longer haunting Evelyn.
Geoffrey Rawlings, your vices endangered your life and that of your bride. For that, you are poisoned. Understandably, you're angry.
Now the truth is known. Your anger has served its purpose. Release it.
Why should I? I died so young. I died betrayed.
You lived, you died. Be at peace with it.
Peace? Yes, peace. As peaceful as a picture. I wish to be remembered. Perhaps Evelyn would finish my portrait.
She may be amenable. No guarantees.
Am I going to heaven? Will Felicity meet me there? Will she forgive me?
No guarantees there either, friend.
Go in peace.
I thought he cared for nothing. I was wrong.
He lived life selfishly, but there was love in him.
Strangely, the peace you gave him has set me free.
Enjoy it, Madam Doctor, as best you can.
And when you get done, the effects are going to make a difference. Obviously, if you kill Evelyn, her body's going to be sitting there. People may ask where the doctor is, who knows. If you help Joffrey ascend, Evelyn actually finds a little bit of peace in the fact that this is kind of moved on and she can come, and she has to live with her decision that she killed him. But if she doesn't have much regrets and he's moved on in a more peaceful way, fine. If you banish him, again, slightly different reaction. And this is just a small piece of where the decisions you make in the larger story beats, the ones that are based around the towns and the major characters, and then also the choice that you make between Red and Antea, all of these are going to change what ending you get and how the story plays out. But this is just one example, and there are many haunting cases, and they all are gray. There's no right answer. Do you believe that Evelyn did the right thing? She protected her sister. It's family. I don't want her to die from syphilis, and this guy's a bit of a turd, but she just can't see it because love is blind, so I'm going to take him out of the equation. Well, doing that, I can't look at her in the eye. I'm out of here. Or is Joffrey the one who's to blame? And this is going to come up over and over and over. All of these relationships are difficult with, like, love and sacrifice and pain and who is right and who is wrong and who crossed the line. All of that is what this game fully encompasses because none of these decisions are easy. You could make a decision in all of these haunting cases most of the time different than what anybody else will do. So for somebody to make the exact same decisions as somebody else is probably going to be pretty small. But that is one example of a haunting case, and hopefully that kind of explains how your choices are going to go, how things are not quite as clear. And this is a good portion of the game. You're going to be investigating things, you're going to go out into the world, you may run into combat encounters as you do, but generally it's going to be more about understanding what's going on with each of these characters in the world and resolving the hauntings that are related to them. The bigger hauntings have bigger manifestations, and that's where you get into, you know, bigger boss battles and stuff like that. So, without covering spoilers for some people, you all should be back if you skip forward in the timestamp. But that example kind of covers how the haunting investigations work and what you're going to be doing. Now, the other question is, what do you do besides you're doing those investigations? Well, you're running around this world, and you're going to be in combat. Now, the combat is going to involve Red and Antea both, and you can swap between them on the fly pretty quickly. She's got the ability to do kind of her ghostly abilities. She's got punching, and she's also got her, like, area of effect attack. She's also got little teleport attack. She's got the ability to kind of, like, not quite Spider-Man web them down, but you'll throw that at them, and they'll kind of be stuck in place, so it's an effective thing. Red, he has his sword. He has his Fire Bane that he can use. It's kind of like my A attack, as you can see on screen. And you can do combo attacks between them as well. So if I do a triple and then I switch over to her, you'll see that little blue charge. I'm going to switch into an uppercut, and those switch attacks actually have some benefits to them as well. Now, when it comes to combat, I will say it's pretty good. But is it amazing? Is it Sekiro? Is it like the best action combat ever? Probably not. But I will say it is pretty good. It's very serviceable for the story. It's not anything I had any issues with. Now, I will tell you I played on normal difficulty. And depending on how much you want to challenge yourself for combat, you can crank it up if you want to. Totally up to you. I will say for a story game, though, I'm looking more to experience the events and the characters and understand what's going on there, as opposed to bash my head against the combat encounter. But if you're a beast and you want to, really make combat something you specialize in, you can kind of lean into that more and have as much of a challenge as you want there. I don't know how everything plays out, if the boss fights are balanced, that kind of stuff, until you get there. Now, that's combat, and I'll show you a little example once we get over where those enemies are. But you'll notice I cannot shoot that enemy. I did not miss. It is right on the head. I cannot shoot those enemies. And the main reason for that is one of my main frustrations in the game. And you're going to look around and see this. Now, have you ever seen one of these in other games? People will probably point to your Sony thing where you squeeze between the tight walls and everybody asks questions, why do you do that? There are many reasons why you do that in games, and this is probably going to be a game with another example of that. Squeezing through walls where it's like, if it's a longer one that you go through, it's typically they're unloading the stuff from the game memory that is behind you, and they're loading in what is going to be on the other side of where you're going. They can also do that to, when you go through a certain area and you get into a clearing, now you're in a combat encounter and you can't get out easily because they've locked you in there. For me, in this game, it's okay in other games because I don't feel those are overly used. You might see them, sometimes here and there, but I feel like in this game they are so frequent. It is just part of the world design and part of locking you into combat, and it just feels overly used. Because literally right here, I'm going through the tiniest little squeeze, and now I'm here at basically a save point in a campfire where you rest and kind of reset yourself. But it's also right over here to the left. Now, over here to the left, I'm going to be able to be in a combat encounter if I go this direction because I know it's an option. But not only are you going to squeeze under things, you're also going to have the option here to duck under things. Sometimes these are longer, sometimes these are shorter. So you have this option. Now, I don't mind the accessibility thing where the actual entrances that you interact with are colored. I'm fine with that because not having to search quite so much for those things. Sometimes people are like, oh, I wish it was more free. Games don't quite work that way, so that's more of an accessibility thing than most. But sometimes it's a guide because people get lost, myself included. Now, climbing up and down, the animations look good, the movement around. It's like, I think everything is generally pretty good. And I gotta tell you, the musket, by the way, I don't know why that second half of the animation is just cool. What it reminds me of is in Terminator 2 when he does the flip with the shotgun while he's on the motorcycle and it's like a one-handed reload. And I'm like, I don't even know if that's physically possible, but it looks badass. Same thing here. It's like normally a musket would take a long time. You got to put the powder in, you got to put the ball in, you got to pack it all down. And then when you're done, then you load it up and then it takes you an hour to get another thing. But he's able to shoot, drop it in and then go. Obviously it's not realistic, but I just think it's it's kind of cool animation. He's a mercenary, he's a fighter, he's pretty good at it. But my issue lies with the idea that one, I am right here and I'm not in the combat encounter because I'm not over there. So you are truly limited and focused where things are going to interact between where you are in the world. Now, not having to worry about stamina, a really nice thing because the world itself is not small. Now, I'm not going to show you all the world. I'll show you kind of one part of it. You'll have a main city hub, but as you go out for a branching activity, you'll have some stuff out here. There's combat challenges, there's points of interest, there's things that you're going to interact with in the world that may need a certain ability that you're going to get from Antea. She's got her spectral abilities that are going to allow you to traverse and get to things in the world that you couldn't earlier in the game. So picture a little bit of Metroidvania going on there. But nothing in the world is ever too far. The map is pretty damn big, but you've got, shelters, which are going to work as fast travel points. And if I run from here, go up through the woods, maybe get a combat encounter or two, wherever I'm going to go, it's never that far away. And while the world is big, I feel and sometimes it's a little linear, it's one of those things that it feels about the right size because you're not going to have a horse or a mount or anything of those lines. But the map in and of itself, very, very helpful. Things like shelters or places that you've been. Maybe you've got a task that you might come back to later. Kind of, it's going to tell you, hey, something for the quest is in this area. But usually it's only going to give you an area and you got to do a little investigation. So you got to do a little searching. But it is still kind of a linear game because this path from, hey, point A to point B up here, there's a main path. There's a couple little areas you can explore, looking for materials, looking for random altars and other things to do. But generally, it is not an open world. It is kind of a linear game with like zones that are attached to the main pathway. If that makes sense, you'll kind of know when you play it. Now, combat, as I said, serviceable, pretty good. Thing about combat is you've got different damage types. So red is going to do physical damage. So when I fire, you'll notice there's a white number and a yellow number. Now as red, when I'm fighting specters, I do more damage because red is working on kind of the firebane thing. Now for Antea, she's better against certain corpses and things. So her teleport attack. Try and actually get it back here. So that's her teleport. It usually covers more ground. She's got her area of effect attack. And again, when I swing at the like wolf corpse thing, I'm not doing a ton of damage. But if I come in here with my teleport and then my burst attack, 147 damage when I do that one. And then now, being as I took the wolf out, the corpse, I'm not doing as much damage, but if I swap, those numbers get to be a lot bigger for red. So he's not too thrilled. And literally, I showed you a couple. You've got that cave that I just showed you. It's like right over there. You've got the crevice to the shelter. You've got the like squeeze through walkway over there. And you've even got another one right down here because as you walk in, there's another one. And I think it's just, I don't want to say, but it is something about the way level design is done, the way combat encounters are done. Okay, I come in here, I get a chest, and I run back out. And when I run back out, then I got to go through here again. It's just the most I've ever seen these things used, and after a while, you come to peace with there in the game. If you want to see the story through, they're going to be there. But I don't think I've ever seen them used this much. Now, combat itself is pretty fun, as I said, the abilities and changing things up. But you've also got the ability to kind of get into a bit of a build. You've got your outfit, you've got different weapons and guns. You can upgrade them as you pretty much wander through the world. You're going to find materials like ghostly consecrations and moss and minerals and fur and mushrooms. All of that stuff is going to be, when you get to a resting point, what you use to upgrade your gear. So if I want to upgrade this, you can see it's going to take waxy cap mushrooms, so I gotta go find those, but it's going to tell you what region they're in. And then scourges, you get those when you kill some of the more elite enemies, and this is how you can go through your upgrade paths. But also each piece of gear that you randomly find, and I'm missing quite a few of them, they're going to kind of play things a little differently. So my melee attack damage is increased by 5% all the time. I kind of left this on for a while. Now, then later on, rifle damage is increased up to 50% at long range. So if I'm far away from an enemy, my rifle just does more damage. That was nice. And if I wanted to upgrade it, I could actually go back to the shelter right now and upgrade it because I have the ability to do that. Same thing. I've only found 2 of the weapons. I'm pretty sure there's more than 2. Your base weapons allow your first and second attacks to do a little bit more. This one, I would actually get a little bit of lifesteal from it. So that was an easy pick for me personally. Antea's got her abilities over here, and different pieces of gear, you're going to have different stats. So you have a little bit of an action RPG nature. Do you want more persistence, which is going to be the spirit health points of Antea, or do you want more vitality if you lean into Red's combat more? All of this stuff comes into builds, I would say, and I know that sounds weird in a game like this that's mostly focused around story, but in combat, you've got skill trees, but all the skill trees, like everything, they're going to have a choice. You're going to have maximum number of charges for your health. There's only one of these that I found so far. So, of course, I'm going to say, sure, I'll take another heal. If I want this one, I give it up. Same thing. Every one of these is always going to be a path. You're never going to unlock, say, all 8 on this page. You're only going to get half of them. Same thing here. You're only going to get half of the options. You're never going to have them all. So do you want more attacks? If things are on cooldown, do you want to do more damage in other ways? Do you want to lean into switch attacks? And this is the switch attack I was talking about. So switch to Antea right after a front dodge. Pretty simple to show you. So that's the little glow. See that blue glow? That's her attack. And then if you time it right, switch So it's like you would dodge forward and then give him a kick, and then that attack will actually have the ability, and that's like some of the materials that you would use, but that kick attack would actually have, it's a damage dealt by all perfect switches attacks is increased by 20, and if you lean into perfect switches a lot, that can actually add up, but it also ignores that resistance I was talking about, so it would do some more damage. And there's a lot of abilities, I'm not going to go through them all, but basically there's a main tree based on certain abilities that she will have, and then you're going to have certain skills that you get for him, certain skills that you get for her. So the fact that you actually have combat with builds, you're not going to get different weapons. It's always a sword, a bane, and a rifle, but you get variations of those that have different abilities and tweaks, and if you lean into a playstyle, you're probably going to notice that you and I could play the game in a reasonably different way for how we use our abilities and how we play combat. Now, when it comes to the world of action, having infinite stamina means I can truly just dodge forever. So a lot of what I did was dodging and played it safe, and I made it through most combat encounters with not a lot of issue. Heals I didn't really have to use that often, maybe on a couple of bosses. But again, normal difficulty, if you want more of a challenge, that's fine. As for the technical side of things, I will say in combat and running around, I'm running 4K 60. I've got a 5950X and a 3090, 64 gig of memory, but that's more for video editing. The game ran pretty well. There's a couple hitches, like when you do go to the menu, it does feel like there's a bit of a lock, but even from a recent patch, that actually feels better. I think there's going to be a day one patch as well. I didn't really have any bugs, any issues. There were one or two times, and I think some of that will be in, the patch that probably just happened, maybe the day one patch as well, where it felt like I needed to interact with something, or something needed to happen. Literally at that point, if I just went, saved, backed out, and then came back in, I probably would be in a good place, and it would like load up and trigger whatever needs to happen. That happened a couple of times, but I would say not a lot, and never anything groundbreaking. But there were just a couple of moments I had this hunch of like, I need to interact with something or whatever it may be. But the game is still going to be a fairly linear thing. Like, if you're in the middle of dialogue, you can't interact with certain objects until you are done with that dialogue. So it is all going to be about the story, the dialogue, the characters. But it's focused. They've done games like Plague Tale and Don't Nod as Life is Strange. So if you like interesting stories, tough decisions, morally gray, all of this stuff paired with like an action RPG game with combat and some kind of cool abilities and a decent sized map, this is actually going to be a pretty good game for you. Technically, it's like there was one point I was in a cave and this rock had like a white square on it. And I think it was just like a random missing texture or something. It was very weird looking. But that was like, it was so out of place that I hadn't seen it the entire game. So when I finally did, I was like, oh, somebody forgot a texture somewhere. That is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. But for me, it's the frustration of the level design being forced in these little pockets of what you can interact with. This is just this is a good example for me to show you. Not all of the game is this bad. I mean, if you're going along a map and you're like running along this path, you might run from here to here. You might, shimmy down a cliff wall. You might run around here, and then this run here, or this run, say, from like here to here, you're just running, and it doesn't take you that long to cover, but it's just when you get into a lot of those environmental interactions, I just feel like they're overly used. So finally, for my overall thoughts, I was torn on this one for putting a score on it. I try and go off the IGN scale, for one, because it's public, it's got descriptions, it's usually some set of words in there you can kind of connect to, and that's where your review lands, and I was right between a 7 and an 8. I feel like I would have events that were like 8, really good stories, choices, the kind of voice acting and stuff really delivered the idea of what was going on in that moment. Characters that you can relate to, tough decisions depending on your perspective on things. All of that stuff is what this game is really focused on. Is combat serviceable to get you through on normal difficulty? Yeah, I don't know what very hard is like. I didn't play it that way, so I don't know if that would be frustrating or if it would feel balanced, but just more challenging. Was the level design a frustration? Sure, being as like, you can't be in combat if I'm on the other side of that little ridge, or I gotta go down between these, little crevices to go find a chest, and you do that stuff frequently. But as I went through the game, it just became part of the game, and I guess I got used to it. But it also, for me, in my head, when I kept trying to figure out what to score this, and when I would say good, I think there's something more here than good, and that's why for me, I'm going to give this an 8. I'm going to give this a great rating. Now, I know some people are probably going to say, hey, this is a good game, this is an okay game. Some people are probably going to say it's an amazing game if they really get into the stories, but if the stories don't do it for you, I could see it going the other way. But for me, a 7 just didn't quite feel high enough, and while it's like right between 7 and 8, if I'm going to stick to a whole number, I think I have to tip the scale up to an 8, because even letting this thing manifest and just like figure it out over the weekend and kind of let it marinate, basically, good didn't feel quite enough. So for me, this is a great game. If you play this, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are, because this is probably going to be a little divisive. I can see a range of scores on this one, and hopefully what I've showed you in this review gives you a good idea of if you're going to enjoy this game. If you enjoy the investigations, if you enjoy like story and dialogue and those things, this could be for you. If you're looking for like the best action combat in the world, maybe this is less your game. But hopefully from the review, you have a better idea. So if you did enjoy the review, drop a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the review, the style, the length. Maybe I should shorten these things up, which I probably do since it's long. But this one felt like it needed to really let you guys experience something and hopefully not spoil too much. But if you do enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel, hit that alert bell, hit the like button on the videos. That's always helpful. If you want to find me on Twitch or Twitter, I'm out there as well. But for Banishers Ghost of New Eden, this is going to be an interesting review process, I'm sure. But I hope this one served you well, and good luck out there.